I'm Kaylee, and these are the books that I read in April. I had a pretty good reading month in April, just kind of steady reading along and making some progress in some of my goals. Before we dive into all the reading that I did in April, please do subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you had a good reading month in April, and follow me over on Instagram and Goodreads and all the places. So I read 8 books in April. I read 1 classic. I read 6 fantasy books, 2 of which were middle grade fantasy, 3 YA fantasy, and 1 fantasy that I can't quite pinpoint an age group for this. So just a no age fantasy for all ages. And I also read 1 middle grade mystery. As always, we're going to start out with the classics. I read The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I really enjoyed it. It was very mysterious, very different from what you would see in the theater or the movies. The story structure was kind of all over the place, but somehow it worked. It was okay. It was really fascinating to get more of the details and kind of the background in this story. And I did a whole other video all about my in-depth thoughts about The Phantom of the Opera. So be sure to go over and check out that video if you want to hear all about what I liked and what I didn't like in Phantom of the Opera. I've also been listening to the audiobook of the Renegades trilogy. So I finished the first book, Renegades. Nova has grown up with her uncle, who is the leader of the anarchists, and they have trained her to hate the renegade superheroes. So she agrees to infiltrate the renegades by pretending to become one of them so she can spy on them and figure out their secrets and their weaknesses. But Nova finds that her loyalties are divided as she becomes more and more involved with the renegades, and she begins to realize they're not all bad people. And of course, she is especially drawn to Adrian, a young superhero whose 2 dads are the leaders of the Renegades. This was a really fun story about superheroes and villains. The plot is adventurous, there are many twists and turns, but the pacing is just way too slow. And I have found this in all of the most recent Marissa Meyer books that I've read. The writing just drags on and on, telling the reader really obvious things that we already know. It slows down the action to explain things that are obvious. Like, you don't need to stop and have several paragraphs telling me that a character is afraid to run into a burning building. Like, of course they're afraid to run into a burning building. It's a burning building. It's just like every scene is dragged out within an inch of its life. This book should have been like 150 pages shorter. And of course you can imagine listening to it on audiobook was even more frustrating. If I had been reading it physically, I would have just skimmed a little bit. But I was listening to that audiobook at maximum speed. It was already at 2 times speed. It won't go any faster than that. But I really liked Nova's character. She is an idealist, and so she is torn between the ideals that she wants to see in the world and then the complete mess that the world is in. And she's very guarded and tries to act really tough, but then we get to see her sensitive heart. And I really loved Adrian's character. He is trying to prove himself because his 2 dads are like the power couple. His 2 dads are the leaders of the entire city. He wants to prove to them that he is also a powerful superhero. There is some violence in this book, but it wasn't too bad. There's a few descriptions of blood, but it wasn't too graphic or gross. If you want to see details about the violence and the romance and some questionable maybe content in this book, you can always check it out on the Screen It First website. It has been screened on there, so you can actually see snapshots of each page that has something with violence or maybe profanity. And then you can see exactly what words are used or exactly how graphic is the violence. And then you can decide if this book is right for you. I will leave a link to this book on the Screen It First website in the description, so you can go right over and check it out. I ended up giving this 3.5 stars. I am now currently in the middle of the second book, Arch Enemies. And I'm still listening to it on audiobook because I have the whole trilogy that I bought on audiobook. It's fine. It's fine. It's not the best. It has some issues, but I am enjoying the story and I'm enjoying the characters. It's fine. I think my problem really is that I just loved the Lunar Chronicles so much. And now everything that Marissa Meyer writes, I'm expecting it to be the Lunar Chronicles. And it's just not. It's just not. I read The Seven Tales of Trinket. Trinket's father disappeared years ago, and now that she is alone in the world, she has decided to follow in his footsteps and try to become a storytelling bard like he was years ago. So she begins to gather stories as she travels, and everywhere she goes, she asks if anyone has heard of her father, has anyone seen him, but no one has seen him for years. She meets a seer who can tell the future. She meets a woman whose baby has been kidnapped by the Selkies. She faces off against an evil banshee and the fairy queen. She rides on a puka to the land of the dead, and she saves a noble hound from a ferocious wolf. And through all of her adventures, she is gathering these stories so that she can become a bard like her father. I really love Trinket's character. The storytelling is just fantastic. All the adventures are really exciting and wild, and we get all of these wonderful Celtic legends. And although the stories are based on these fairy tale Celtic legends about the Fae and pukas and banshees, this story has its own twists, its own unique perspective on these fairy tales of magical creatures. The best part of this story was seeing Trinket's character development. Sometimes she can be really recklessly brave, but it's only because she is so passionately determined to discover the truth. She has a really big heart, and I just loved her character. I gave this book 4 stars. I read The Secret History of Tom Trueheart. Tom comes from a family of adventurers in the land of stories. He has 6 burly older brothers, and they are all named Jack. And when they receive a commission from the Story Bureau, then they get instructions to go on a certain adventure, and they enter the land of stories and follow their instructions to have an adventure. But one day, his brothers all receive new story instructions, and off they go to awaken the cursed maiden, or fight the giant, or climb the beanstalk, or whatever it is that they're doing. But they don't return. They disappear right in the middle of each of their stories. And so Tom is assigned to find them and return them to their respective stories. This was such a fun adventure. I really liked Tom's character. He is very anxious about performing well on his adventure because all of his brothers are such well-known adventurers, and he has a big family legacy to live up to. He's really worried that if something scary happens, he's not going to have the courage to continue. But when he is faced with a true crisis, he doesn't really think about himself. He just thinks about what needs to be done, and he finds that he does have the strength and courage. He kind of discovers that courage is not about posturing with big muscles. It's just about having compassion for people. It's about caring for others more than you're scared for yourself. And I really loved the world building in the land of stories. We get to see some well-known fairy tales like Snow White and Rapunzel and Jack and the Beanstalk and Sleeping Beauty and the Frog Prince and Hansel and Gretel. But each of these stories has their own little silly twist that makes it really funny. And it was kind of interesting to see like the inner workings behind the stories. This is such a fun book, and it was marked as nothing found on the Screen It First website, meaning that there's no scary scenes, there's no violence, there's no profanity, there's no like sensitive content that you need to worry about if your kids are reading this one. I gave this one 4 stars. I read The Warrior Heir. Jack discovers he is the descendant of wizards, and he has a special warrior magical stone in his heart. There are 2 factions of wizards that have been fighting for power for centuries, and to minimize the bloodshed of the wars, they have a tradition of holding a tournament where warriors will fight to see who can gain power. And so now wizards from both sides are after Jack because he has a warrior stone, which means he is eligible to fight in the tournament. So they either want to capture him and use him in the game, or they just want to kill him outright to stop the other side from using him in the game. But Jack just wants to live a normal life in his little sleepy town in Ohio. He just wants to play soccer in high school and pass his exams and maybe ask out a girl that he likes. But now he has to train to fight and kill for the wizards that he previously knew nothing about. I really liked the interesting world building in this modern fantasy because there are different levels of magic users and the wizards hold all the power. So we get a lot of these political machinations from different sides, and Jack is stuck in the middle. I liked Jack's character because he is very, very determined. He makes a decision and he sticks to it even when things get tough. Even when it's painful or difficult, he just plows ahead with all his strength because he has a goal. And his main goal is just protecting the people that he cares about, and he's willing to sacrifice himself if it means keeping them safe. The writing is okay. It's not brilliant, but it's not bad either. The pacing is fine. I liked the supporting characters. Some of them are a little bit cardboard, but they're fine. I was glad to find out that you can read this book as a standalone. You don't have to commit to the full trilogy. So I was like, oh good, no cliffhangers. I can just read that first book and be like, nah, I'm done. So because Jack is a warrior, there is a lot of violence, as you can imagine. It wasn't too gross. Sometimes I was like, whoa, skip that part, yucko. But it wasn't anything that was like gross enough to give me nightmares or something. So to see the details of the violence in this one, you can always check it out on the Screen It First website, and I'll leave a link in the description so you can check out all the descriptions of violence and kind of decide, is it too gross for you? I gave the Warrior Heir 3 stars. I've also been rereading through the Heroes of Olympus series. I think this is my second time reading through this series, and of course I adore Percy Jackson. So the second book is The Son of Neptune. I really, really love seeing Percy interacting with other characters. Like I love the Percy and Annabeth and Grover, little group. But it was so interesting to see Percy meeting brand new people and developing new friendships. And they don't know who he is, He doesn't even know who he is. He's lost his memory for most of the book. But it was just so interesting to see kind of this new dynamic that is developing with Percy and his new friends. As always with a Rick Riordan book, I love the legends, I love the adventure, the writing is snappy, the dialogue is sassy, the plot is full of surprises. Well, not surprises because this is my second time reading it, but still, the plot takes a lot of interesting turns. And of course the characters, I just love them so much. My heart is just so full of feelings for these Heroes of Olympus characters. I gave Son of Neptune 5 stars, and I'm already in the middle of The Mark of Athena. I have really, really been enjoying this reread. And one night when I had insomnia, I decided, you know what? I just need to reread like an old favorite that I haven't looked at in years, but I know it's just like that perfect comfort read to read at 2 a.m. when you just had a nightmare and you can't get back to sleep and you're all upset. So of course I picked up the first book in the Enchanted Forest Chronicles, Dealing with Dragons. And in a perfect twist of fate, just as I was picking up this series to reread it, someone else commented on another one of my videos and recommended this series for the June Journeys with Inklings readathon. It's got dragons and princesses and quests and all the stuff, so it definitely gives you those kind of Middle-earth and Narnia fantasy vibes. It's just so funny that literally right as I'm already reading it, another person was recommending it to me, and I was like, actually, that's perfect. In Dealing with Dragons, Princess Cimarine is sick and tired of embroidery lessons and dancing lessons and etiquette lessons, so she decides to run away. And she ends up being the captive princess of the dragon Kazul. And she is having the time of her life with Kazul in the dragon caves. But if only those pesky knights would stop hanging around and trying to rescue her. But when a group of sneaky wizards start spying around the dragon caves, only Cimarine has the wits and the courage to stop them. I just love this whole series. I'm so happy to be rereading it again. I went back in my Goodreads and looked, and it's been like 8 years or something, or like 5 years. I don't know. It's been several years since I've reread it. I just adore Cimarine. She is so clever. She is sensible. She has common sense. She gets things done. She's independent. And especially in a world where princesses are thought to be vapid and empty-headed, and Cimarine just proves them wrong. One of the best things about this book is how Cimarine finds like-minded, sensible people who take her seriously and appreciate what she has to offer. They don't expect her to conform to the princess etiquette rules. She finds her people, and she begins to flourish among them. And of course, I love the magic and the adventure and the whole world of the Enchanted Forest. There's a lot of humor, the writing style is very witty and fun, very lighthearted, and the plot keeps moving along with lots of mystery and adventure and magic. It's absolutely brilliant. I gave this first book 5 stars. I'm right in the middle of the second book right now, Searching for Dragons, which of course I will also give 5 stars, naturally. I just completely adore this whole series. And the last book in this video is one that I received from a publisher in exchange for a free and honest review. I read Alice Eclair Spy Extraordinaire, A Recipe for Trouble. 13-year-old Alice has been receiving mysterious instructions to do some basic spy work. Her own uncle was a spy until his death, and he taught her all about codes and ciphers and spy work. Alice receives a mission to board the famous Sapphire Express, and she needs to steal some papers from a foreign spy. Because Alice works in her mother's bakery, then Alice is hired as the new pastry chef on the luxurious train. And she begins to observe all the wealthy first-class passengers very carefully to figure out which one is the spy. Everyone is a suspect, but after some strange clues are revealed, Alice begins to wonder what is really going on with these passengers on board the Sapphire Express. I really enjoyed the mystery and all the clues and the codes. It's really fun to see how Alice's knowledge of pastry and confections actually help her to solve the clues. The writing is exciting, the pacing is great. I was surprised by all the fun plot twists. However, I would have liked this book much better if Alice wasn't constantly lying. I mean, I get that she has to preserve her secret identity as a spy, so there are certainly going to be some situations where you have to lie to people because, you're a spy. But she lies to her mother. She lies to her friends. She lies when she didn't really need to lie in that situation. You could have thought of some other way to deal with it and probably gotten better results rather than lying to people. I just feel like she's the heroine of the story. Shouldn't she have a little more of a stricter moral code? Or at least shouldn't it give you pause before you lie to your own mother? All that deception was just so unnecessary. There's even a scene where Alice encourages her friend to lie to her parents. I would have liked Alice a lot better if she had a better conscience. This is another one that has been screened on the Screen It First website, so if you're kind of like, wait a minute, I don't know about all this lying, you can go on there and see the exact snapshots of where she lied and who she lied to and what the situation was, and you can kind of decide for yourself, is that something you would want your child to read about, where they're lying to their parents? And that way you can just kind of make your own decision. I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. And those are all the books that I read in April. Please leave a comment and let us know what was one of your favorite books that you read in April. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and remember, the right book in the right hands at the right time can change the world.